think we need to have a philosophy when it comes to him playing baseball. It's always been, and same for the kids that I coach, the goal is not for him to be the best 8-year-old, it's to be the best 18-year-old. If you have that philosophy as kind of the foundation, I think it shapes the way you view the different stages of their career. And because I was humbled so many times by baseball, I really wanted to focus on lifting him up and being more like a mental coach. I immediately wanted to step in and then felt that tension a little bit. I was like, you know what? When he's ready, he'll come to me. I'm better served just to take a step back.
All right, so we are joined today by a great baseball family, which I also want to point out, kind of a great wrestling family too, subtly, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But Kevin and Kellan Gergel, Kellan, 2029, right? That's your draft year. Or I should say your senior year. You guys live in Roswell, Georgia, and you guys currently play for the East Cobb Mariners, right? I get everything correct so far.
Nailed it.
Perfect. So Kevin, I want to kind of start with you, I guess. You obviously grew up playing the game of baseball. We're close to the same age. I think I got you by like a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience going through kind of what we're experiencing now with travel baseball, how much in your mind are you like blown away by the changes that you've seen, at least over the last couple years?
It's completely different, candidly, from what I experienced growing up. I am certainly surprised by the pressures that are on Kellan and his teammates and all kids playing travel ball. And you know, social media, a lot goes into it that these kids have to deal with that I never had to.
Same.
Yeah.
Right. Did you even play travel baseball? Because you did.
I did. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I started when I was 12. Playing for Chet Lemon down in Orlando, Florida on the Juice. So that was my first taste of travel ball, and he was phenomenal. And even before that, I was one of the lucky ones who had a great foundation where my parents really they got it. They were supportive. My dad coached me up until that point when I was 12. So I had a great foundation. And then it was really when I played for the Juice when my love of the game and the travel piece kind of started to really go from there.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's so much to, I guess, appreciate about the game and really enjoy what's going on with travel baseball today. But I do think, like anything, you can overdo it, right? So Kellan, I guess question for you, this experience for you, right? I imagine like playing baseball for a career would be a dream, right? How is it to deal with going to one of these tournaments and seeing, hundreds of teams or, hundreds of players? How is it to deal with all the attention that is kind of on you guys with whether it's scouts that you see or recruiting coordinators or just family members? What is that like?
I think it's good that we're able to play the top competition from really all over, not just in the state of Georgia. Sure. I think that helps me try to work harder and try to play my best that I can.
Well, you know what I think it's going to do for you too is you're going to be able to kind of test your skill set against other guys so when I played, we didn't even have travel baseball, at least where I was in Sacramento. There probably was further away, but it wasn't anything that I was doing at the time. So we would only do, fall ball, right? Over the summer, honestly, we would kind of casually play American Legion baseball.
Sure.
But you always kind of wondered in the back of your mind, like, okay, I'm one of the better kids in the small area where I'm from, even the city, but then how do I compare against other kids? And it wasn't until I went to junior college where I finally got to experience like, oh, this is a school who recruits pretty much all throughout California. Oh, okay, now I can actually look and see how good I am. And all it is it's information for you, right? I mean, there's a lot of clients that I represent and they would be guys who, let's just say they were sent to high A their first year after they got drafted. And it would take them an entire year to figure out, how good am I, right? And then when they realize, oh, I'm good enough to actually stay at this level, the following year, they would actually have this massive year in high A and then get promoted to double A. Same thing. Double A, they're kind of like figuring it out. Then they would perform well. Next year, have this massive year and they get promoted. And so I do feel like for you guys now in travel baseball, like you have this opportunity, which is really going to ultimately make better players. And I think we're finally seeing in the big leagues right now, right? Like so many of these guys are arguably better than anybody that came before them. And so I'm excited about what's going to happen kind of in the future. So, Kevin, I do want to touch on it. So your experience in baseball, you didn't just play for Chet Lemon. You eventually went to Kennesaw, or I guess Georgia Tech first, then Kennesaw State. And when you went from Georgia Tech to Kennesaw, this is like pre-transfer portal. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, so went to Georgia Tech. I had always wanted to go to Tech, and there was a stud first baseman and a stud catcher, my two positions as juniors, both drafted. So I'm thinking they're gonna get drafted. I'm gonna have two spots to compete for. They both come back for their senior year, so I was kind of the odd man out. Even though it was a great experience at the school itself. So transferring to Kennesaw, I wanted to go somewhere I was going to play. That was really important to me. I had played for Coach Ryan Coe over the summer in East Cobb prior. I loved him. I had some friends on the team. But it was going from D1 to D2. So I had to think about that. But I wanted to go somewhere ultimately that wanted me and where I could play. So of course I transfer there and I immediately get hurt.
Oh, really?
Yes. So after 2 years in college, I had 5 total at-bats. So not how I drew it up when I left Lassiter High School. But ultimately it was the right move, and I absolutely wouldn't trade my experience at Kennesaw for anything.
And so you tell us what happens then. So you were at Kennesaw for 3 years. What was that last season like there?
It was great. I wound up just kind of catching fire. Wound up being an All-American catcher my senior year. And I really thought that was it. We were 1 game shy of making it to the World Series. And I had a few different teams looking at me, but I had hurt my ankle towards the end of my career there. And I thought that was it. But thankfully the Mariners did draft me. And I had an opportunity to play a little bit of pro ball. So it was wonderful.
And so now as a father, do you catch yourself? I actually just did a podcast about this. You have a unique experience having played the game, right?
Sure.
Even at the professional level. And if you didn't have a chance to play at the professional level, even in college, I feel like you'd have a really good mindset for what these kids are dealing with. But do you ever catch yourself being hard on them?
I would say probably the opposite. Even though at times I've had to hold myself back. I think even taking a step back before he started playing at all, my wife Teal, who you know, she and I we talked about. I think we need to have a philosophy when it comes to him playing baseball. And for us, it's always been, and same for the kids that I coach, is the goal is not for him to be the best 8-year-old, it's to be the best 18-year-old. If you have that philosophy as kind of the foundation, I think it shapes the way you view the different stages of their career, even from T-ball all the way up to now he's 15. So I've had that in the back of my mind as kind of the foundation. And because I was humbled so many times by baseball, I really wanted to focus on lifting him up and being more like a mental coach almost. So that's where I've tried to stay in that lane. I probably haven't always. He might tell you a different story, but I've been really, really trying to make a conscious effort of that incremental growth. When you're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, kind of that first phase, develop the love of the game. Driving to the baseball field, that should be the best part of their day. So if you don't have that love of the game as the foundation, then I think ultimately you're going to burn out at some point.
And how old was he when you kind of came up with this philosophy?
4.
Wow.
When he first started.
So
T-ball.
it's all you've really ever known. I was going to ask you, like, have you noticed a difference ever since he's had this? So what you essentially just described to me is brilliant. It's a vision that you have for kind of how this experience should go as a family. Do you agree with that philosophy, Kellan?
Yeah, I agree with it. I think it really helps me a lot. I don't feel too much pressure at all.
Amazing.
I don't feel like I need to do anything else. Feel good.
Do you ever find yourself being hard on yourself throughout this process?
Because sometimes, after a tough game, he won't really say anything. So I'm just stuck like talking to myself. But I think also him not saying anything helps in the long run.
Okay, I want everyone to know I did not plant this, because this literally is a conversation I had on a Q&A episode I just did, where ultimately what the goal is, I think, for any family, any father who's, let's just say, coaching his son. And when I say coach, I don't mean like literal coach, but like a supportive figure who's trying to help him. The goal, I believe, is getting a player to ultimately seek the father's opinion, seek the father's advice, rather than the opposite, which oftentimes happens which is the parent kind of like forcibly telling you what you should be doing. I've seen it, as I'm sure you guys have, when a parent forces advice, guidance, whatever it is on the player, oftentimes it's met with like, please, enough. I can't do this. Doesn't work. And it's not that what the parent or particularly the dad may be saying that's inaccurate. It may be completely accurate, completely fair. It may be something that's exactly what I would say, right? But because it's coming from the parent, you just don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
We all were there. Like I was there, you were there. And so I think what you're doing, and this is why I wanted to kind of take a moment and acknowledge this, the fact that you have this philosophy is now giving you the opportunity to ask yourself, do I want my dad's advice here? And if you do, I'm assuming you'll ask. And when you ask, you're more interested in what he's going to say.
I think you're spot on. I had to learn that lesson myself because, I wanted to tinker with his batting stance, for example, when he was younger, things like that. And I felt that pushback. And I ultimately had to come to the realization that you can't force it. Thankfully, he's been surrounded by great coaches. So let them do their job. And like you said, when he's ready, he'll come to me. And I've definitely seen that shift as he's gotten older, working in the cage and stuff with him. He's more open to suggestions from me. But I immediately wanted to like step in, and then I felt that tension a little bit. I was like, you know what? I'm better served just to take a step back.
Yeah. And I'm assuming when you go to games, other parents maybe don't have this philosophy, and you've seen how that can take a tough turn.
Well, I think that's why having that foundation of or goal or philosophy is so important, because it's very easy to get swept up into it as a parent. I mean, the first time your son connects on a long hit or strikes somebody out, and you kind of get into the whole travel ball experience, it can be very easy to be swept by it. I've seen parents who I would say kind of get caught up in it, and I've also seen overbearing coaches and dads, and I just know the kids are miserable, and I hate that because again, especially when they're younger, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it really should be about having fun, learning to be a teammate, and there's some parents, unfortunately, it's just they get caught up in it a little bit.
Yeah. So going back to like when we were kids, and Kellan, I'm sure your dad's probably talked to you about these times. There was no social media, right? There was no ranking system, and so now it's like the ecosystem that you're in, whether you know this consciously or not. Like the ecosystem you're in is pretty much built to kind of like pull you in even more. And so when a guy's ranked high, what happens like as a player, and be honest with me, when you see these rankings, right? What do you want with the ranking?
I mean, I obviously want to get ranked, but that's not the whole thing. If I know I'm playing good and if I'm striking these ranked guys out or getting hits off them, I know that I belong on that field and that I deserve the rank, even if I don't get ranked.
Yeah.
But there also have been times where I'm not performing well. And then I see on social media, like kids my age throwing 10, 15 miles an hour harder than me or hitting the ball way harder than I am. And I do get caught up in that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's normal, right? Any kid is. I mean, look, adults are having a hard time with this. So what does that tell you? No, but I just, my point in it is the ecosystem is built to like get you to want to get ranked and want to get ranked higher and continue to move up. And all it takes, and this is maybe why I feel like this podcast was necessary at some point, is all it takes is to realize, this one particular player, I remember, 10 years ago, he was ranked in the top 5 from the time he was a freshman until he was a senior. And then the draft comes and he doesn't get drafted. And you're left wondering, well, how did that happen? Right? And it just makes you realize like, the ranking system, while maybe somewhat indicative of who are good players, it's not necessarily completely aligned with like the best player is number 1, the second best player is number 2, so on and so forth, right? Like the draft is not following the ranking. And so, a guy who comes to mind is like Evan Longoria. You know the name Evan Longoria, I'm assuming, right? I mean, this guy, high school baseball player, doesn't end up at a big program, goes to a junior college, ends up at Long Beach State, becomes a 3rd overall pick. Those stories happen. And so I think as a player, it's an important reminder that it's all about like how much do I want it. Tarek Skubal, I think he went to like Seattle University or something like that in the Northwest, right? Wasn't a high ranked player, wasn't a huge draft prospect. And this guy won the Cy Young Award. And so I think it's always important to kind of put everything in perspective, which again, going back to your philosophy, I think is so important because it allows him to be himself. It allows you guys as a family to just like take some pressure off. And it really more than anything is kind of this guiding light. Like, am I making this decision because it's what's going to ultimately make him the best 18-year-old? Or is it what's going to make him the best 8-year-old? And then you can kind of change your approach. Is there anything that you would say, Kellan, that you're like, this part of it isn't fun? Like this part of travel ball isn't really fun.
I think that the toughest part about travel ball is when we get into these tournaments that are only Saturday and Sunday. If we're doing really well, we're going to have to play like 4 or 5 or 6 games in one day, back to back to back. And that takes a toll on my body.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I guess there's never a good time for that, but if there's any good time for it, it's probably now. But you're right. I mean, there's like, the law of diminishing returns is the thing. So at some point you're like, yeah, you're probably not going to get the most out of yourself. Do you feel like, what's your guys' like practice schedule like? What does that look like?
For high school, it was pretty much practice every day. But for travel, it's more 3 days a week, I'd say. And then do a couple lessons like once a week.
And do you go to, does the travel team have a facility that you go to and use?
Yeah. So my coach for travel ball, I do pitching lessons through him.
Okay.
And then one of his old teammates, I do hitting lessons with.
Oh, nice. And so both at the same facility?
2 different.
2 different. Okay. And so walk me through again, like give me like a typical week.
So start on Monday, practice really. And
this is with the high school?
This is for travel.
Or the travel. Okay.
Tuesday, a pitching lesson. Wednesday, kind of an off day. Maybe go up to like the park, go to the cages. Then Thursday, practice again. Friday, more of a rest day. And then Saturday, Sunday, you're playing. Yeah.
Games.
Yeah.
Right. It's wild. And how old are you? 15?
15.
Right. And this is what it's great because you love the game, but this is what it requires, right? This is what everyone else is doing. Do you ever get to the point where you're like, do you play other sports, by the way?
No, just baseball.
He played basketball, rec, which I think was an important part too of this whole process. It's tough. It's tough to be able to play multiple sports just because of the way that the current system's set up. But if you can, and that's what I like about East Cobb, the Mariners organization, is they really encourage these guys to play another sport if you can in the fall, because fall is really, really light, which I think is fantastic. But I loved watching them play basketball, probably more than baseball, honestly.
Yeah. Did you want to stop playing basketball?
No, it just kind of happened.
Like from a schedule standpoint? Yeah. I was in the same boat when I was a kid too. Played multiple sports. And then it gets to a place where you're like, okay, we're so crazy busy that I can keep doing this. It's just going to be very, very hard on the family. So now maybe is the right time to make a decision. I only bring it up because I think a lot of families mistakenly think we don't have a choice. We have to do this. If we don't do this, we're going to fall behind. And that's where I always push back. It's like, don't do it because you're going to fall behind. Do it because from a timing perspective, it's too much on the family and like we can't do both. But don't do it because you think, and to your philosophy, again, like that would tell you the same thing. Yeah. I can think of many conversations I've had where literally kids were like, yeah, no, I just feel like the industry is telling me that I have to choose now. And that's all
a shame. I know.
It is, but it is part of this experience in this environment, unfortunately. Let's talk about, okay. You have hobbies?
Yeah, I like watching movies and listening to music.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listening to music.
I do watch a lot of baseball.
Favorite team?
Braves.
Okay, makes sense. Because we're in Atlanta.
Absolutely.
By the way, shout out to the Bravo Ocean Studios. Thanks, fellas.
Amazing.
Yeah. You guys are going to a Braves game actually today, in fact.
We sure are.
Very cool. Favorite player?
Spencer Strider when he's healthy.
Okay. I figured it was going to be a pitcher, by the way.
Yeah.
I was hoping you would say Austin, but that's understandable. Understandable. When you watch baseball, like, tell me how you're watching it. And by the way, have you talked to him about like to watch baseball? Has that been a conversation?
I think it just happened organically because I love watching the Braves, always have. And that, that's how I connected with my dad going to Tigers games growing up when we lived in Detroit. And then with Kellan, I think it's with the Braves, it's just, it's usually on. So it just happened organically. And then, I think when he was younger, wasn't about looking for anything in particular, just enjoying it. We were lucky that the Braves won the World Series a few years ago. To have that moment and go to a couple games with him in the playoffs was unbelievable. But now as he's older, maybe looking at it a little bit differently.
Especially as a pitcher too. Like, why did he throw that pitch in that count?
Exactly.
Which can be really confusing at the big league level because have you ever heard like pitching backwards? Have you ever? Yeah. Like it can be a little confusing. He's like, wait a minute. What did he just throw in that count? It happens at the big league level. They're actually starting to do that, funny enough, even in college now. Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah.
Guys are more advanced and they can locate other pitches. So you found value in watching these baseball games.
Definitely. Especially some of the top pitchers like a Skeens or Skubal. I'm looking to see like what they're throwing in what counts, how they're tunneling their pitches, how they're attacking these hitters.
This is what I mean. Kids are way more advanced today.
Sure. Yeah.
When I was in high school, I wouldn't have even known any of that stuff.
Same.
Yeah. Which is ultimately, again, it's a good thing. It certainly is. Okay. So talk to me about Spencer Strider and why is he your favorite player?
I just really like his stuff. I like his fastball a lot. How he just goes after guys and gets a lot of strikeouts.
Do you pay attention to like his demeanor on the mound? Because I do know he's a pretty intense guy. Yeah,
I do a lot. And also another thing about him is his build.
Yeah.
Definitely his legs are pretty big. So
they are.
Try to work on my legs a little bit to get some velo.
Nice. So Kevin, you brought up the mental side earlier. I want to talk about that a little bit. I think this is such a fascinating conversation because funny enough, I was in Athens, as I shared with you guys, and they're playing South Carolina. We have players on Georgia as well as a player on South Carolina.
Very cool.
And oftentimes I find myself having conversations with these guys about the mental side of the game, right? All it takes is to ask one player like, hey, what percentage of the game is mental? And you would say, what would you say? Take a guess. There's no right answer, by the way.
90.
Okay, right. Everyone's anywhere between 75 and 90%. That's what they say. And my follow-up is historically always, okay, great. How much of your time is devoted to that 90%? If there's 100% available, right? You're spending all of this time throughout the week training and doing all this stuff. What percentage of the time is spent on the mental side? And what I typically get is, I don't know, like 1%, 2%. And I've always found that fascinating because if you're a guy looking for, and I don't mean this with you because you're still developing as a player and everything, but as you get older, you get these guys even in pro ball. It's like you're a guy who you know what it looks like physically to be here. Oftentimes what separates guys is the mental side, and you aren't really spending or devoting much time to that piece. What if we took just a bit of time? You're not taking it away from the physical side. You're going to still do that. You love doing all that. But let's devote some of the time to the mental piece. And most guys are like all about it, right? But their next question is always, what do I do? So I'm curious, like, what is the mental side to you? And like, how do you guys go about handling that, talking about that?
Yeah, it's something I struggled with. I was kind of streaky as a hitter. And it's interesting because you have to have irrational confidence to be a baseball player at the highest levels, but you also have to be humble. And those two can kind of conflict. So something I did with him and his sister, Teal and I like to do, growing up when they were little, before they went to bed, I would say, you have what it takes. You have what it takes. And I just wanted to repeat that over and over. So hopefully it will start to seep in.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of that, we would do something called a humble huddle.
Love this.
Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord, and He will lift you up. So there's kind of that element of it as well. So it's really interesting because you fail so much in baseball. You fail, and it can wear on you. How do you avoid, an 0 for 4? Now all of a sudden you hit a couple more hard, but you don't get any hits. Now you're 0 for 8. Now you're in your head. It's tough. It really is. So that combined with, I think having habits in place, routines in place where, again, you're more focused on the process than the outcome, especially when they're younger. And that's easier said than done, though, because, like I said, if you go 0 for a couple games, all of a sudden you're in your head. So it's difficult. But having a foundation that you've got what it takes, but still humble in your faith, I think can help you set that as a baseline. And then how you get there to prepare mentally outside of that, I think it might vary for different people.
How does that sit with you?
Yeah, there's been a lot of times where I'm in a slump where it just feels like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm still playing. I should stop. But going to him for advice has definitely helped me in that spot.
Yeah.
And he's not just pressuring me, just pounding me with advice. I'm going to him for that advice. And another thing about that has helped is knowing that slumps happen to everyone, even at the highest level. Like I saw Cal Raleigh start the season 0 for 7 Ks, and he's one of the best players in the world. So knowing that every baseball player
decent
goes through that, it helps.
Yeah. So what is so interesting about, I would say, anything when it comes to the mental side is, well, maybe this is just baseball in general. It's truly an opportunity. I think most guys, when they look at like, oh, I want to be a good baseball player, I have to do all this work, right? Physical, mental, whatever it is. And what I would almost make the argument of, and a good buddy of mine who I've had on this podcast multiple times, Joe, we've talked about this, where baseball, sports in general, right? Working on this skill, it's all connected through life, right? Like I would almost make the argument that if you can get really, really good at the mental side in the game of baseball, it directly correlates to your ability to be mentally strong in life. And so one of the things that you brought up is obviously your faith.
Sure.
Right? Connects directly to life, obviously. But most times when guys are like wrestling with, that's like the perfect word for me, because you're like, I know that there's a higher level of thought that I'm not necessarily thinking, but how do I even tackle it? And what it does require, I mean, you're going through this for the first time, like there's no, I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid and then like I have the thing and now I'm just going to be a big leaguer and that's just how it's going to go. Like, no, you're constantly wrestling with how do I make adjustments, right? What's working, what's not working, and like refining as you go. And when guys who are talented enough physically, when they don't ultimately make it, it's like they got to a place where maybe, they just couldn't overcome this one thing. And most of the time that is one of the mental pieces that they're struggling with. And so I would love to kind of go through this little exercise with you. I think it would be helpful for you guys. And I also think it'd be helpful for people listening. So could you do me a favor and think about, and this is directly related to an event that my buddy Joe and I just actually recently did in San Diego, where we kind of went through this with families. But can you think about like, what's a complaint that you have around the game of baseball? Is there something that comes to mind? Actually, don't start there. Let me ask you this instead. What does success look like for you in baseball?
Success really just looks like it's not always going 4 for 4 with 3 RBIs. It's hitting the ball hard and playing my hardest. I know that if I'm playing good, even if the results aren't there, that I'm getting better. And that shows me that I'm doing what I need to do.
And what's success, let's say, on the mound for you?
Is my stuff working? A lot of the times, not every pitch is going to work. Not every ball hit in play, your fielders are going to make the play. But if I know I'm getting soft contact and I'm able to have the hitters off balance, I know that I'm doing what I need to do on the mound.
Great. I love that. So it's important that players get clear, right? On like, well, what does success even look like for me? Because oftentimes what happens is people live in a world where everything just lives in their head. And what they think is that I can will this thing to happen and it's just going to kind of happen, right? And when we have failures in baseball, we get frustrated and we think we're no good. And this like cycle just continues. But when we have success, we think we're great and it's just going to continue forever. And it's all a little bit of a fallacy, right? We're going to have both and you're going to be wrestling with it and figuring it out as you go. But now think about like when you have a bad game, okay? What's something that you would say that's like a complaint that you would have?
A complaint
that maybe you would like repeat to yourself, maybe like, oh man, I sucked today, or
yeah, it just feels like some of the times that like I need to be getting these hits, I need to be playing better. But I mean, baseball, you fail 7 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
You're a Hall of Famer.
So what I love about you is you already have this like built-in positive view. So immediately, and not a lot of kids have this, immediately upon you feeling a certain way negatively, you have this side of you that's already saying like, yeah, but like that's not true. Like this is the reality of this game. People fail 7 out of 10 times, right? But follow me with this exercise, right? So tell me the first part of that again for the listener. What's the complaint?
That it feels like I need to be playing better. It feels like I need to be doing more.
Right. So need, right? I need to. So underneath that need is this belief or this vision that, well, the reason I need to is because if I don't do this, something's going to happen that I do not want to have happen. And that's what a complaint ultimately is. Something that you don't want to have happen that is happening, or something that you want to have happen that isn't happening. Either one of those two. And so in that experience that you're having, you're like, uh-oh, if this doesn't happen for me, what does then that mean for my career, baseball, life, whatever? And we go down these rabbit holes, right? Well, underneath all of these complaints is this ultimate vision. And so when guys don't have success, they're not piecing it together like you are, already knowing that this is part of the game. They're going down the rabbit hole of saying, oh no, I don't know what to do. And then what also happens is the language that they use to describe their experience is all bad, right? And then what happens with the parent who sees it happening, who shows up and says, like, all these thoughts are going through, let's say, your head after a game. You haven't even seen your parents. You see your parents, and the first thing that your dad says to you, let's say, is like, what are you doing out there today? You look terrible. What are you thinking? What are all those lessons for? Why are we taking you and spending all this money? This is a waste of money. So it just reinforces like, uh-oh, man, I really, really need this. So now what happens? More stress, more pressure. And this cycle continues over and over and over. And so I want to commend you because because what you already kind of have, the habit of being curious about, I know I feel this way, but is this in fact true for me in baseball? Well, no, because if I'm expecting to have success 100% of the time, well, that's not this game, right? Failure is part of it. So that's really, really good. Yeah, not many players do that, man. Honestly, guys learn that maybe they'll learn it later on in high school, maybe college, some guys even in pro ball, because they've been getting away with being so good physically.
Sure.
But they just showed up and been like, yeah, this is how good I am.
Yeah, no, candidly, I was a bit of a head case myself. And I think that's kind of helped me as a parent, because I didn't want him to experience that. Even though I had an amazing upbringing, amazing parents, there was just something in me that I wrestled with kind of off and on. It was a bit of a roller coaster mentally. So I wanted to do what I could to help set a foundation for him where he'd be better equipped.
Yeah.
But it's so hard. Baseball is such a hard sport in general. And I see it a lot with parents. I think I'm lucky because I have a unique perspective. I've been basically an assistant coach for his team since he was 4, now even through East Cobb. So I get to coach first base. I get to be in the dugout, but I also get to be a parent. Mm-hmm. And so I get to see different perspectives. And you can tell the kids who are always kind of looking back at their parents from the dugout into the stands. And it always drove me crazy that they would do that. And they would feel like they had to.
Yeah.
Just to kind of check and see how their parents were reacting.
Like
to the play.
reinforcement almost?
Yeah, looking for reinforcement or when things weren't going well, you could tell ideally they should just be focused on the game and not their parents. But I have seen that some.
Wow.
So yeah, but on the same token, I think it goes back to the mental piece. A big part of it is the joy of the game, the love of the game. That's why it's so important to instill that from the very beginning, because you ultimately have to love it. To be able to do something that you're going to fail at over and over, you have to have that love for the game. And I think laying that foundation at an early age is so important. And then the next piece of that, once you have that, you kind of build on kind of the fundamentals and the willingness to compete, the competitiveness. And I think as they progress and they get a little older and they start to hit puberty, then if you have the love of the game, you have the fundamentals, you have that competitiveness, then it's a matter of, all right, let's make it happen. What are the habits we need to have in order to make it happen? And part of that is working on the mental game, which you talked about. Yeah.
Give me some of your goals, like when you're a senior, what are some of your goals? We have a few years for that to happen, but just curious.
I mean, I definitely want to play college baseball. I think that's the big goal right now. But right now, some of my smaller goals are throw a little harder, gain a little velo on the mound, start driving the ball a little more, keep progressing, like make my JV, and then obviously make varsity at my high school. So those are some of the goals that.
Nice. As it relates to travel ball, and this is a question, like I think every kid is kind of different. What tournaments, showcases do you guys go to? And maybe that's a question you have for me. I don't know, but I'm really curious because I think the goals that you ultimately have both for this season and the years to come should be guiding your thoughts. Because if you have nothing guiding that, then it feels like, oh, well, we should go to everything. Like we'll never say no. And then that becomes crazy. So
we're mainly playing in perfect game and PBR, prep baseball right now. I personally haven't gone to any showcases because
totally fine.
A lot of these showcases, like, I don't think you need to go until you're like in high school.
I would agree with you. Well, not only that, here's the reality of these showcases is what is the point of the showcase, right? There needs to be a point of the showcase. You don't go to a showcase to go to a showcase. Like that's not the goal of it, right? Naturally, a showcase is somewhere you can show off your talent. When's the time in baseball that you would need to show off your talent? Well, if your goal is to go play college baseball, they can't even talk to you until August 1 of your junior year. So why go to a showcase at 15, right? There's got to be some other reason. And personally, I don't necessarily think there is one at this age. So you certainly, I would be right along with you guys saying like, there's no real need to go to a showcase yet. But what about the tournaments? Like which specific tournaments do you guys typically go to?
Yeah, a lot of the big perfect game tournaments like the WWBA. It was in Hoover last year. It's back in Atlanta this year.
It's exciting for you guys.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Yes.
But that's always a fun one because, it's like 150 teams from all over. So, but it's cool to see how I compare to a lot of these guys from all over.
Okay, so that's a big one. Is there any others that kind of jump out?
There's a big prep baseball one always at Lake Point that's similar to the WWBA.
Yeah, that's a great facility there.
It is.
Yeah. When you've kind of crafted this plan for these tournaments, how have you gone through that?
Yeah. Candidly, because I'm not the head coach, I get the lucky job to just kind of show up, be the first base coach and cheer these guys on. So I'm not involved with the structure and setting up our schedule. But a lot goes into it because I see it. He's very blessed that he's got a phenomenal coach in Kenny Falk, who he played for Kennesaw State. He was drafted by the Tigers, AAA closer. He gets it. For him, it's all about the process. He's got a very blue collar mentality. He's not out there chasing titles on these weekend tournaments. Right. He's really about development. He's about putting these kids in the best position. And he's about competing. And Kellan will tell you that too. It's no spot is secure on that team. They're constantly competing and they have that kind of mentality. So I think as they look to schedule the season, it's finding that balance. You want to play against the best, and these bigger tournaments certainly do that. We're really lucky too, being in the Atlanta area, that a lot of the local teams, there's just so many talented players in the programs that any given weekend, he's going to be playing against top competition. So it's about finding the balance of how often do you want to play, thinking about arm care, how many people you have on your team, how many games you're going to have to play. So a lot goes into it. I'm thankful I don't have to play in all that, but they do a really good job.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal isn't, everybody needs to go to these specific events. It's like, well, no, what are your goals? There has to be a why to everything. Don't just go to events to go to events. What is your philosophy on, because I've been openly talking about this for a while, where I think the mistake that oftentimes gets made is the focus for parents is exposure. Exposure. It's the, my kid's good enough. We just have to get him seen. And I always make the argument with families that is a byproduct of doing a lot of other things really well. The first thing that you should be kind of focused on is development, right? Which you guys are. Once you focus on development, then you kind of want to test it. Like you said, I want to compare myself, like, where am I relative to everybody else? So I want to go compete to figure out, where do I stack up? And then when ready, the natural byproduct of everything is going to be, you're going to get the exposure, right? Partly because you go to these events, partly because you're in Atlanta, partly because you're good enough, right? And I think sometimes everybody needs to understand, with the way that the scouting community is set up, if you're good enough, they will find you.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
More true today than ever.
Even back when we played, they would find you.
Yeah.
And even more so now, you're right. And I think you're spot on. I think what you're doing with this podcast and the message you're putting out to the parents is so important too. Because taking my coach hat off and putting my parent hat back on, it's easy to get caught up in this. It's exciting when your kid does good, and you want the best for them naturally as a parent. And so, part of you thinks that exposure is going to help them, and it certainly will, but it's got to be organic. You're right. If they're doing the right things, if they have the right process, if they're getting better, playing against the right competition, if they're good enough, they will be found. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
So I'd like to do this, if you guys would humor me for a minute. Are there any questions that you're curious about that you'd want to ask me? Because I want to make sure I at least spend some time on that if you guys have any questions.
Yeah. I've got a million questions for you. I think I would start at the highest level, just in general. What would your philosophy be if you were to advise someone who has, let's say, an 8, 9, 10-year-old who's just starting to show some signs of promise? What would be your biggest piece of advice or philosophy that you would want to see?
For me, I'd be curious, how much does my kid want to play the game? Right? Like that would lead my thinking. I think what happens sometimes is, as parents, we'll have a belief of what we want for our kids, and we let that kind of lead the way. And look, it comes from a good place, right? I believe all parents, they love their kids so much that they want to do their part, and they want to make sure, maybe it's because that never happened for them, or maybe their parent did do that for them and it really helped them get to where they are today. But they want to be that kind of solid figure for their child. And so they really, not forcibly, but they think they can will it into existence. And I've seen the unfortunate consequence of maybe the kid not communicating well enough. And so he just kind of, follows his parents' lead, goes to all the events, gets to a place at, unfortunately, probably around like 13, where he realizes, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't fun. And then the parent's like, what do you mean? I had no idea. So I would want to be led first by, does my kid actually enjoy it? So I'd want that to be as organic as possible. At 8 years old, I'd be looking at it like, to your point, 8 isn't the goal. It's really 18 and beyond.
Sure.
If we're, God willing, lucky enough to where my kid's going to be good enough at that point, then let's see what it looks like then. But at 8, let's just go out there and have as much fun as humanly possible. And then see, what are your interests? Is it baseball? Maybe it's golf. Like for me, so I played baseball, ice hockey, funny enough, basketball and football as a kid, right? Got to a place where hockey was actually my first love. And then it just sucked the life out of me because of the travel. It was crazy at that age. And because I grew up in California, I wanted to play with all my high school buddies. They didn't have hockey in high school.
Hockey, yeah.
So I just went and I played.
Can you still skate? Can you still skate?
I haven't gone in like 30 years. So I don't know. But I just pretty much, I don't want to say settled on baseball, but it got to a place where I'm like, baseball's my best sport. So let me then just go play baseball so I can go play with all my buddies in high school. So to answer your question, I would start there. And then above and beyond that, once I know that my kid actually really likes it, is I would get really specific with him and ask him, how committed do you want to be to this? Because we can really dive in, but let me tell you what that's going to look like. Or we can just like casually play. And then I would continue to watch him and then put him in situations where it's like, no, his back's against the wall. Let's see how he responds. And try to do that as organic as possible with like my hands off, as much as that I can control that, right? That's where I would start. And then continue to refine and adjust as we go.
That's fantastic. My other question would be, because this is brand new to me, and God willing, he does continue to progress and gets to a point where he's able to play in college and achieve that goal. With NIL, do you have a manager? Do you have an agent? Even if they're just playing college baseball, all that, it seems foreign to me as well. So,
yeah. So what I would say as far as NIL, and here's what's interesting. What things look like today with NIL is going to be drastically different than what things look like when you're a senior in high school, right? Things are going to change quite a bit and continue to change quite a bit. Now, with that being said, the reality is NIL in baseball today isn't nearly what it is in some of these other sports. So that's the first thing. I think a lot of parents and players see these SEC quarterbacks and they're like, oh my gosh, this guy's making $4 million this year. That's not necessarily happening in baseball. But if you compare the money in baseball today in NIL to, pre-NIL, like obviously it's drastically different and there is a lot of money. So with the NIL piece, there's an important distinction that I want to make sure people understand. So the first is, when you go to college, we're going to start there and then I'll back it up into high school. When you go to college, there's a difference between what people think of as NIL and what something called revenue sharing is. Have you heard of either term? Have you? No? Okay. So that's the easiest way to explain this would be both are a component of NIL. Okay. Which basically is buying your name, image, and likeness, right? So like, think about it like your brand. If I'm a school and I'm giving you NIL money, I'm wanting to purchase the ability to use your brand, right? And so there's two components of that. One is, actually there's three, but we'll say there's two for the purpose of this conversation. One is NIL, like marketing NIL. Like Delta Airlines wants to call on the phone and say, hey, we want you to be in a commercial and in exchange, we're going to pay you for it, right? That's like the marketing piece. The other piece is what's called revenue share, which is literally coming directly from the school. And it feels like a paycheck, right? Every month, you're going to get this amount. So I bring both of these things up because your advisor representation at that point is negotiating both of those two things, right? Now, the third component I said I wasn't going to touch on, that's like the scholarship piece. Like that's a third bucket, which I did an episode with Will Lawler, the associate AD at the University of Georgia a couple weeks ago. And we got into all this stuff. So if you want to go listen to that, that could be helpful. Now that's in college, right? So then back that off and now it's high school. What's going on in high school? Think about it from the standpoint of what are they buying? They're buying the use of my brand. So what is my brand, right? What is my social media conveying to the world about who I am? What they're really buying is your followers, right? Your followers say something about you to them. And so nowadays, I'll give you an example. So equipment companies, when you got drafted back in the day, they would figure out like, okay, how good do I think this player is? And if you're on the New York Yankees and they think you're going to be the next Aaron Judge, okay, well, if I'm Nike, I want to be associated with you because on TV, I want you to wear Nike, right? Where nowadays, it's less about that and more about how many followers do you have? Because that's the attention that I want to purchase. So as a kid today, and I'm not encouraging people to do this, but like what it's ultimately about for these companies is, well, who is this person? What is his brand? And do we want to be associated and do we want to have access to his followers? So if you're somebody with 1,000 followers compared to somebody with 500,000 followers, those are two different numbers, right? Now, with that being said, the better players, I think all these companies recognize like, okay, he doesn't have the followers now, but he will the minute, let's say, he gets drafted. And so there is still some interest from those companies, but that's kind of that NIL piece that I know a lot of parents and players are totally confused by, which I understand. Now, what I'm not saying is for everybody just to say, oh, so I really need to be devoting a ton of time to building my brand at 15. If that's it, if like that's an interest of you, but if it's actually something that you don't really care about or think about, don't waste time on that because that's not going to be the thing that ultimately becomes your ticket to the big leagues, right? Like they're signing you because you're good at baseball, not because you have a following, right? If you have a following, okay, that's great. It's a bonus, but it's not like the introduction into them having interest. So all to say, I guess to answer your question, it's an advisor, an agent would help you navigate that world when the time comes.
Sure. Yeah.
But we obviously have a few years till that happens. And when that happens for you, it's going to be totally different. Yeah. So hopefully that was helpful.
Very interesting.
Do you have any questions?
No.
No? Nothing comes to mind. You don't want to know what it's like with these big leaguers? Nothing?
How did you meet Austin Riley? Like, how did that relationship kind of start?
I met him through his travel baseball coach in 2014, I think. Yeah, 2014. So it's been a while. And at the time he was in high school, kind of coming into his own a little bit. And so interestingly enough, anytime we're talking to kids, let's just say at that age, right? At 17 years old, 16 years old, it's a leap of faith. Like you don't know if a kid's going to develop like he hopefully will. You know, again, I've been doing this long enough to know, like I've represented players at 17, 18 years old that I would have said, I mean, this guy's going to be the next Austin Riley. This guy's going to be the next, great player in the game. And it hasn't happened for him, maybe because of injury, maybe because, mentally they weren't capable. Maybe it's because, it didn't work out for him in pro ball, right? But funny enough, then there's these guys like Austin who you just see this like thing in him and you're like, yeah, what that is, like that works. And the thing for Austin that I will tell you is he gets to the big leagues and he goes on this massive tear. And I don't know if you remember that. You were probably too young at the time. This is 2018 was the year. So he goes into spring training and he has this really good spring training, right? And they've got Donaldson on the team. They're like kind of set. It's easy for them to start him off in AAA. Has a really good camp though. Doesn't make the team, goes to AAA. And there was certainly some frustration for Austin. Felt like I did enough, right? But being who Austin is, goes out and ultimately like, hey, I just got to go perform. I can't worry about that stuff. Like that's not going to be anything I can ultimately control. So he goes out for the first 3 weeks of the season and he hits something like 15 home runs in like the first 3 weeks of the season in AAA. And it got to a place where the GM of the Braves at the time is like, okay, like you pretty much fought your way into the big leagues because we need that guy who's that hot in the big leagues. So then he starts off in the big leagues and he hits like 10 home runs in the first month in the big leagues. So now he's got like, and I'm, rounding up, I'm sure, because I don't remember exactly what the totals are, but it was like 20 something homers in the first month and a half. Crazy between the AAA and the big leagues. And then gets to a point where it's like, goes ice cold. Right. And so imagine having gone through that and then now you're in the big leagues and you've been waiting for this. And then you're like, oh man, what's going on? And needing to fight through that. I mean, it's crazy. And so all to say, to use your words earlier, it's part of the game, right? You're going to fail 7 out of 10 times. And so why is that mental piece so important? Why is the strong faith so important? When that happens, what does it say about who you are?
Absolutely. Right. And when I was released by the Mariners and all of a sudden I found myself, about 25 years old, really my identity from when I was like 5 to 25 for 20 years, I'm a baseball player. I'm a baseball player. But when that's taken away from you, it's a major shock to your system. And that's when I really realized there's got to be more to life than baseball. And, it's character, it's faith, it's other things. But there's a point where everyone no longer plays baseball. If you make that solely your identity, I think you're gonna really struggle when that time comes. We love Austin Riley. He absolutely rakes. It's so interesting that you could be that hot, then you make it, and then all of a sudden it falls off like that. To have that mental strength that he was able to then overcome, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
it's pretty incredible.
He set some
right?
big time hits for the Braves too. We love Austin.
Oh yeah, he's fun to watch.
He can rake.
All right, we have a couple minutes left. Humor me. I'm going to do a little kind of quick rapid fire for both of you guys. Okay, so I want you guys to finish my sentence, and I'll start with you. Coaches are
either helpful or not.
Okay, let's go with the thing I love doing most on the baseball field is
striking people out.
Love it. Why? Just out of curiosity.
It's just a really good
Feels
feeling
good.
knowing that my stuff is better than this hitter.
I love that. My biggest fear for him on the baseball field is?
My biggest fear is he will feel like he has to perform like he doesn't. In my mind, like I've already had more joy watching him play up to this point than I will ever need. So my biggest fear is that he feels like he has to. I just want him to do it for himself and for the love of the game.
Wonderful. You got a good dad, man. Okay. All right. If I could strike anybody out in the big leagues, I would choose to strike
Aaron Judge.
Okay. I love it. What would you do if you struck out Aaron Judge? Would you like show him up? Would you stare at him?
No, I would just walk off. I would want to, but I'd try to just control my emotion.
Yeah.
He's really blessed because he goes to Blessed Trinity in Roswell, as you mentioned. And a senior on that team, Joseph Contreras, played for the World Baseball Classic.
I saw.
He faced Judge and he got him to
it's pretty wild.
Out to double play.
Broken
17
bat.
years old. Broken bat. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty crazy. I was watching that game and I'm like, this is just insane.
So how lucky is he that as they were going through tryouts and stuff this year for the respective teams at Blessed Trinity, he was throwing a bullpen. Who were you throwing it next to?
Contreras.
Were you?
Yeah.
Amazing.
How lucky is he to be in such a world-class program that Coach Wagner has built over at Blessed Trinity, that even as a freshman, just to kind of see that is really cool.
Well, and I want to touch on something which we didn't get into. You kind of grew up in an interesting environment around like pro sports in general, right? Your dad obviously played pro ball, but we don't want to forget the fact that your uncle is Cody Rhodes, right? And your grandfather was Dusty Rhodes. Clip some of these highlights in here, but like for anybody who doesn't know, I think Cody Rhodes is like the dude right now, right?
Yeah.
He's a champ.
Did you ever think you were going to get into wrestling? Did he ever try to talk you into it?
Yeah. If the opportunity ever is there, that'd be fun.
I'll tell you what, I think you're going to have the size. Because at 15, you're 6'1". I would say you're probably closer to 6'2". How much do you weigh?
Like 180.
Yeah. That's pretty good at 15 years old. I'll take that. I'm not 6'2" right now. I'm over 180, but yeah. That's kind of a cool environment to grow up in. Do you ever go to the matches?
Yeah, they're really fun to watch.
Are they?
Yeah.
It's got to be interesting.
It's super interesting. Dusty was phenomenal. To me as his son-in-law, just watching him, he just loved his family. I mean, he talk about being humble and grounded. Amazing guy, amazing talent. But I mean, he set kind of such a great benchmark of what it meant to be a family man. And then I look at Cody, his uncle. I mean, it's the same thing. And what I love about Cody's story, if you follow wrestling at all, is he had to walk away from the WWE for a few years because he felt that they weren't properly using him the way he could be used.
Yeah.
And he had to go out on his own, bet on himself, a huge risk, which he did. And he traveled the entire globe, he went from wrestling in front of 60,000 people at a WrestleMania to wrestling in front of like 5 people at a small gym. But he bet on himself, and now he came back at a much higher position. And he talked about becoming undeniable. And I love that mindset. And his kind of tagline was undesirable to undeniable. And if you kind of keep that in the back of your mind too, I think as a baseball player or really any sport or any endeavor in life, if you've got that in the back of your mind and then you go out and do the work every day and you have a process and you have habits that say, hey, I'm going to be undeniable. So we take a lot of inspiration from him, and Cody's like the best guy in the world too.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine a better guy, and how he's handled himself at the highest stage. It's been a great example, and he's really gone above and beyond for his nieces and nephews, and especially Kellan.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a great resource. And I imagine that world, I mean, like any pro sport, like it's mental. There's a mental piece to this. And the parallel for me is like stepping away is almost like if you're at the height of the game in the big leagues and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm just going to step away. I don't feel like this best represents what I'm about. And you go do something else and then you find yourself winning the MVP award, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where he's at. Yeah. Like
essentially. Yeah, absolutely.
So, incredible. What a good, what
absolutely.
an inspiration.
And then, Teal, my wife, his mom, kind of grew up with that, with her dad and her other brother, Dustin. So she's been so grounded and been a great resource for him as well, and kind of understands what it all means from a big picture standpoint.
Yeah.
And what's really important in life. And that's faith, that's family.
Yeah.
And
shout out to Teal.
Yeah. She's the best.
And she's involved in the foundation too, I believe.
The Dusty Rhodes Foundation.
Right.
That's right. Yep. Yeah,
amazing.
They're doing a lot of great stuff.
That's good. Fantastic. Well, pretty soon we'll be talking about the Kellan Gergel Foundation, hopefully.
Or Kellan Rhodes.
There you go. Or Kellan Rhodes, the wrestler.
Yeah.
There we go. I appreciate you guys taking the time today. This was super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for all that you're doing. I mean, I wish more people had the mindset you do, and just the perspective you bring at the very highest level. I mean, you get it. You totally get it. And I'm excited about the impact that you're making
Thank you, man.
across the country.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys.
Cool.